The following is rated S for spoilers.
I am going to give you two options. You can come to Wakanda, conscious or unconscious.
You need to be conscious of the way that you look. Walking around here with that ash on your head.
Oh, it's funny.
No, it's not.
I told you.
You look good.
Hello and welcome to the Popcorn Hangover. My name is Alex, and today we are going to be discussing Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, directed by Ryan Coogler, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Joe Robert Cole, starring Letitia Wright, Angela Bassett, Tanakh Huerta, and Dominique Thorne. Releasing November 11th, 2022, with an estimated budget of $250 million. Today, as you can see, I am by myself here in the studio, but I am not alone on the show. I am joined by the lovely Brenden Janeczko. How are you doing?
Good.
We love to hear it. Brenden, it's been a minute since you've been on the podcast. How have you been?
Been good. Been busy finishing up my last semester at Webster University, getting a film degree. So super stoked to kind of get to take a second from the studies and the work and kind of just hang out, talk movies.
Yeah.
Always a joy to be on the pod.
Yeah, especially this movie, because we actually saw this movie together. And before we kind of get into our final thoughts, I'm going to play a quick segment from our Patreon exclusive show, The Parking Lot Talk, where we gave our instant reactions immediately coming out of the theater with a few other friends. Hello and welcome to The Parking Lot Talk, the show where we give our instant reactions to things we just saw. We are sitting in the car of Brenden Janeczko after seeing Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. We've got a lovable band of goons. We got myself, Alex Brown, in the back. We've got
Jake Ward.
And
Brenden Janeczko.
And
Susan Georges.
Yes, this is our little group that we saw the movie with. Let's just jump into it. Jake, what are your instant reactions to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever?
Well, I think it was exactly what they needed to do. I think it needed to be emotional. I needed to feel something when I went in, and that's exactly what I felt coming out. So I think that was perfect. And it reminds me of why I liked Marvel in the first place, because I, to be honest, haven't cared for Marvel for the longest time now. Since No Way Home, but No Way Home was just fun because it had, Toby and Andrew in it, but this was actually felt like a better movie, overall, and I think it's what they needed to do to bring it back to the formula.
Sure, yeah, I totally agree. Brenden and I were just talking, I was reading through the credits, I want to see this the best of Phase 4, but there's No Way Home, but to me it just doesn't feel like a normal MCU movie. Maybe it's because of Andrew and Toby and all the other, characters involved in that. But yeah, I totally agree. This definitely felt like a very traditional MCU movie, kind of back to the norm of what we were getting in the earlier days. Brenden, what were your thoughts on Wakanda Forever?
Yeah, no, refreshing is my initial take. To see something come from Marvel at this scale was just nice to see. It's been a while since we've gotten something that I feel like was at this quality and had the time taken for it. It wasn't something that felt too rushed. Felt like the VFX houses had ample amount of time to do what they needed to do. It was nice to see, and it just proves the point that, when you spend a little bit more time on something, you're going to get a higher quality product, and I think that's what we're getting here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I noticed too. Marvel's been having a CG problem. I did not notice very many issues with the CG here on this one. It all felt very. It looked
cohesive.
It looked really good all the way throughout. Susan, what are your thoughts?
Overall, I was telling this to Jake in the theater as the credits were rolling that it really brought back the idea of a legacy in the MCU. One, because we see a role being transferred, we get introduced to Riri Williams, which I'm so excited for, and then also the little tidbit at the end of just the Black Panther legacy. It I think was probably the best story arc I've seen from Marvel in a minute, and it just felt very nice to kind of witness that completion. And as an audience member, it felt very nice to have like everything come full circle in a story to where I didn't feel like I was gypped of anything for the first time in a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like one of my complaints with the movie is that they spent so much time trying to set up other things, but at the same time they did it in such a way where it didn't feel out of place. So like we were setting up Ironheart, but she still had a very integral role
In
and
this,
and everything was still full circle. We've got still Valentina, she's around, but like all of that stuff with her and Ross still came full circle and it still had a purpose within the movie. So yeah, I agree. Like everything, I feel like a lot of Phase 4 so far has been lots of just cliffhangers and, something is maybe going to happen with this later on.
So that was the parking lot talk. If you would like to check out the full episode, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/thepopcornhangover. Now, Brenden, you haven't seen this a second time yet, so I'm assuming your opinions haven't changed too much. I saw it a second time, and I know that my opinion didn't change a whole lot. I just kind of noticed a few more like nitpicky things. Overall, like after taking some time to think about it, what are your like final thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever?
No, I think initially I was super impressed. Just kind of going back to what Marvel is known for, high end, pushing the boundary, VFX, good storytelling, some quality acting, kind of trying to get back to the centralized idea of what Marvel's supposed to be. And I think that's what I felt immediately out of the theater. But the more I think about it, there's a few nitpicky things about the movie. I think the big one for me was just partly due to that longer runtime. And I don't know if that was, they needed it to fill a bunch of stuff, but they also, they added things that I feel like weren't necessarily needed. They packed a lot in. And I feel like that's like my biggest critique at the moment is like, didn't need everything that they had in there. I don't know if that was similar for you on your second view through, but
no, that is absolutely like what my thoughts are. Is this would almost be another perfect movie, because I think the Black Panther, the original, is a perfect movie. I know a lot of people have disagreed with me on that, and I don't understand. I think it's amazing. Like, and rewatching it before we went to go see Wakanda Forever, like it's just a really freaking good movie, and there's not a whole lot wrong with it.
Oh yeah.
Other than some rough CG, it's pretty freaking flawless.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect up until that last fight scene. Like you can kind of let it go until they start like the whole Killmonger Panther final scene was just kind of brutal. Like that was a bit rushed.
But still, like the emotional weight of the scene.
Yeah, like it totally covered it up.
Made it so that I didn't care too much about the CG until like I don't know, the first few times it may have been bothersome because I'm like, wait, what is that? Am I watching a video game right now? I did have the same thought once during this movie, and it was whenever Namor was getting ready to like go to war with Wakanda, and he's like sitting underwater. I'm pretty sure that was all CG. It looked like
a video game.
There's no way that
it was kind of
There was no way that Tanaka Huerta was actually there, because it did not look good even a little bit.
No.
There was a lot going on, but to be honest, I do not envy Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole one bit.
No.
What they had, because from the reports and things that we've had, Namor and the Atlantis, as in Atlantis, it starts with a T. I can't remember what it's called. I should have looked it up before.
Yeah.
But like all of that, like the general premise was kind of what this was supposed to be from the get-go. And then Chadwick passed away. And then all they did was they pushed back the release date by 6 months.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Letitia Wright then like broke her leg or something and they had to stop shooting for another 3 months. So like,
I do remember that. Yeah.
Like there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, Letitia Wright was also causing some internet
Yeah.
issues. Which, by the way, Letitia Wright in this movie, holy cow. I am so glad that they did not like react super quickly and like cut her off. I'm really glad that they.
I was worried about it. Yeah, I was concerned for a while. Yeah, I remember her having some problems. Yeah.
But I mean, like, despite all the issues, the fact that this movie still came out really good. It does have a few problems, but the fact they were able to flip a script and kind of tell a totally new story with the same kind of assets is incredible. And you also have actors like Letitia Wright, who did not sign up to be the lead in an action film. But she was able to take that and just, stood up to the plate, next man up, and absolutely killed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very impressed because I was worried that we were going to lose a lot of that comedy aspect in her character, just from going from a supporting role and then getting promoted like overnight. Like that's something that I was on the lookout. I was a little concerned for it, but yeah, she pulled it out really well. So congrats.
Yeah, Letitia Wright did fantastic. Angela Bassett was also a standout.
Fantastic.
That scene where she finds out that Shiri was been captured, like it's just oh my gosh, the emotion that you can feel. Because that's even an in-story version of what we were just talking about, where like she had no intention of being queen and just kind of had to stand up and is just losing everybody over the course of a few years. That was very intense. Tenoch Huerta coming in as Namor. What were your thoughts on Namor? Did you like him? Did you know anything about like the character of Namor before coming into the movie?
I didn't know tons. My first reaction when I saw like the reveal, that first scene with him and the wings on the feet, was like, what in Hermes is going on? Just because I'm such a big like Greek and Roman like I'm kind of I'm in that scene. I'm super pumped for the new Percy Jackson series. So that kind of threw me off for a bit. But as far as his performance, I think Tenoch did really well. I think he is about as good as he could do in that scenario. I think he performed well. The only knock I could give, like the overall character of what was going on with Namor, is it's kind of tough to like feel his backstory. I feel like Coogler wanted you to kind of feel more about him, kind of in the same way that he kind of handled Killmonger. Like you wanted to really resonate with him. And it kind of sucks because people are going to compare him to Killmonger, and that's something that is just wildly unfair. But it feels like I was supposed to resonate with this character and feel like, oh yeah, he's a villain. And Disney does a really good job. Marvel does a good job with the villains in general. Like you're always kind of relating to them, and they have like, there's more set, like I'm doing this for a reason. It's not just I'm bad because I want to be bad, like whatever,
Yeah.
So that just felt lost on me. I think it could have been part of just there was so much going on, like Wakanda moving on from, T'Challa's death and grieving, and then them figuring out like what other nations think about them since, T'Challa died and all this other stuff. And it kind of got mixed around that I feel like they didn't get to really push what they wanted to get out of the character. But that being said, fantastic villain. I think he worked well. I'm excited to see more of him.
Yeah, I've been asking for Namor for so long because he's such an interesting character, and I didn't actually think about it, but it's funny you mentioned like the wings on your feet and that being like a Hermes thing, because I mean, technically he's like the king of Atlantis, but due to copyright issues, they can't do Atlantis, so they switched it up. But also, I don't know if there's any like Mayan parallels to that. Like that's a very Greek thing.
I'd be curious to see how that kind of spreads out, because like half of those and like where they came from, like a lot of that kind of mythology type scenarios, like there's a lot of overlap. Like a lot of the different
or like with the sirens, which were so cool.
That also talked straight to me. I was like, what's going on?
Yes,
Like
this.
yeah.
I don't
that's
know
cool.
if this is a Mayan thing because they did live in like the desert, not necessarily a desert, but they did
Yeah.
like live more inland, I guess.
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's definitely inspired by
Mhm.
that Mayan something or other, as
Mhm.
far as like their costume design and everything like that. I don't
Right.
know about the specific character, but yeah.
Yeah. I love Namor in this movie. I think I'm going to disagree with you slightly.
Mhm.
Because I think Namor, it would have been very easy given the circumstances to make Namor a one-dimensional villain. To either A, make him a one-dimensional villain, or B, make him a carbon copy of Killmonger.
Yeah.
And there are definitely a lot of parallels to Killmonger, and
Mhm.
I think people are going to compare him. But I also think that, like, partially due to the writing and just Tanakh Huerta's performance, I almost feel like he's similar enough that you can make the comparison, but also he's different enough that he stands on his own. Like, I don't feel like he was a Killmonger carbon copy. Like, there's similarities between the two, and I almost feel like that comes down to Ryan Coogler creating a theme throughout these Black Panther movies with injustice and all of that. Because, I mean, one of my concerns going into this was that they were going to make Namor either just a straight he's a villain or straight he's a confused hero. I thought they were going to go in either one of those directions, which isn't kind of how that character is. He's a very selfish, I'm going to do whatever I want kind of character. He's very similar to Black Adam, which is interesting that those two movies released so close together. And so I'm really glad that, like, he wasn't really a villain in this movie. He was just the antagonist. Because nothing about him is particularly evil, like, from his perspective. He's just trying to protect his people. And I feel like his reasoning is pretty fair given the circumstances.
I think you make a good point there. I think the more, and maybe on the second watch through, I'll pick up more on that, because I like that first run through. There was so much going on, so just trying to understand his character was something that was kind of on the back burner for me throughout the movie. But
there's so much going on. I had an idea, and I don't know if this would I don't know how this would work, but I almost wonder if we took away the Black Panther part of the title and it was just called Wakanda Forever, would they feel less inclined to include Black Panther and to make it feel like, oh, we need to introduce Martin Freeman because he was in the last one, so we need to bring him back in? Like, if you just change that one part of the title, would that change kind of the way they approached it?
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel like
would
if
this
they
movie work if Shuri never became Black Panther?
I think the movie would work for sure. There would still be a lot of people saying, hello, who's Black Panther now? Just because this whole phase has felt like just a big passing the torch. Like everything is kind of trying to move on. And some are doing it better than others. But like every movie has just been, okay, you're now Captain America. Okay, you're now maybe going to be the new Iron Man. Like, okay, like that we're just constantly getting that push from the MCU. So I feel like as a movie, it would work. As a Phase 4 MCU build, it would be a little tough because they would still have to answer that question later. Like, it'd still be lingering.
That is a very interesting like outlook on Phase 4 that I haven't thought about, because everyone's been asking like, where is this going?
Yeah,
I was
like, what's going on with it?
I was so confident. I was beyond confident that we were going to get a Doom post credit, and we did not. I was so upset because I want to see Doom, and I was also like, I feel like I've been pretty big on like, don't worry, like there's a plan. We don't need to see the plan right now. It all come together
later.
And then we got to the end of the movie, and I realized that no, I just need a little bit. I just need to know how they're gonna get all the way to Secret Wars from where we are now. Speaking of the post-credit scene, the second time I watched the movie, I realized and maybe this is just because it'd be easier to film, or it would be a slight continuity error. But the kid who plays young T'Challa is also the kid that goes up to the Queen when she goes to visit Nakia for the first time. That's the kid that runs up to the Queen and is like, "Hey, are you looking for the headmistress?" And then like takes her over there. And the Queen is like holding two other girls' hands as they're walking up, like doesn't even acknowledge his kid. Oh. But it seems like the kid and the Queen would at least have some sort of knowledge of each other.
Yeah.
It felt a little
interesting.
It felt a little odd to me that they didn't like interact at all.
Like one of two things: severe budget issues, or or they were really trying to hide what was going on.
Yeah, and I mean it works, at least definitely the first time, because you have no idea that's coming. But second time I was like, wait,
you're gonna recognize that.
I know this kid.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
What were your thoughts on young T'Challa?
I think it was good. Mm-hmm. I like it. I'm excited. I think that it's definitely something that will kind of help them continue that legacy for sure. In a way that isn't like, oh, we're just replacing Chadwick Boseman. It's something like, oh, we're gonna kind of like slowly grow into that, and give Shuri some time to be in the spotlight and kind of, you know, do what she needs to do, and give her the chance to explore that whole character. But it also just adds to the extra depth and complexity in this film, and just it's another layer that you have to unpack. So like, I don't think it really hurts it, but definitely is like, it is good to leave it as a post-credit scene. I'll leave it at that.
I was thinking about it. Unless there's another like Endgame, like 5 years later situation, we're gonna have to wait like at least 15 years before this kid is old enough to actually be Black Panther, because he's 6 years old right now. Yeah. So I feel like it's gonna take a very long time to actually maybe see him pop in the role. I don't know. I thought it was a great way to end it, in such a way that we can still honor Chadwick without taking away from Shuri, who this movie was about. Because initially, like, we saw the post-credit, like, I looked over at you, I was like, why does Ryan Coogler, in all of his movies, regardless, like, if he has, like, a post-credit, like, he never puts, the last scene, he just makes a post-credit scene, but, like, that doesn't, just put it in the movie. It's
just, like, a continuation of it.
Just put it in there. But after rewatching it, I kind of realized it almost works better that way, because now the movie goes from the start of with Shuri, you know, being upset that she can't save her brother and her whole world being changed. Yeah. And then by the end, going through this whole journey, and then finally coming to accept what happened, and that everything is going to be okay. And then having that postscript later, after the credits, that kind of says, also, we're going to honor Chadwick and his legacy and continue that legacy. I thought it was a really great postscript. How did you feel about the way they handled Chadwick's death and all of that tragedy within this movie?
Yeah, I think they did a phenomenal job. I think we touched on it during the parking lot talk, but just after thinking about it a little bit longer, and just you there, like, kind of bringing up that journey of what Shuri went through, and it kind of worked. Like, the characters having the influence to be similar, like, it was an unknown illness, happened very quickly, they got it out of the way, like you mentioned, right after we saw the movie, they got it out of the way quickly, and then we're right into, you know, the story, and then how do people react to that. And I think they did a good job, and there were like 2 moments in the film at the beginning and end where they had little moments of silence, and it felt very respectful. And I think that it was handled very well. Yeah,
I definitely had tears streaming down my face during the Marvel logo. I was not okay, because
very emotional.
Artists dying too soon, like, stories are like just the most tragic thing. In my opinion. I thought it was handled really well. I was really worried that he was going to show up in some capacity. Even if it was just we're gonna use old footage to sit him just for him to like show up and like say hi. I did notice though in a few of the in like the flashback sequence, like where it's like the montage. He like they were clips of him, but they were clips that I don't think we've seen before.
Really?
I think there's a couple shots that are unused footage. I'm pretty. I may just be crazy, but I'm pretty sure that there were a couple shots that we hadn't actually seen.
I remember, seeing him, and I just figured it was from those like 3 string of movies he was in. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Normally, I would ask you what your final thoughts are on Wakanda Forever, but this movie's so big. There's so much to talk about, and we are going to continue like that discussion here in the second segment, but with a little more emphasis on how this movie really went back to the basics of just being a good movie and also being a Marvel movie, and all of the pros and the cons that come with that. So when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Brenden Janeczko. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, just want to take a quick second to tell you all about something that we are going to be doing here in a few weeks, and we need your help to pull it off. As you know, Christmas is just around the corner, and everybody loves doing advent calendars, and we want to do our own here on the show, where every day we have one mini episode for 25 days to lead up to Christmas and do a Popcorn Hangover Christmas Advent calendar. But to do that, we're going to need your help. Head over to our social channels, Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon, all at The Popcorn Hangover, and send us some questions. It can be about Christmas-related things. It could be about our favorite movies. It could be about songs or books or whatever questions you may want to ask us. Ask away, and then we will answer those questions on one of the days of the show. Can't wait to hear from all of you.
Dude, I'm so glad we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a lot of fun, and it's not as difficult as I thought it would be.
No, not at all. Like, Anchor has made it especially easy when it comes to like actually getting our podcast out on the air, because when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on all the listening platforms. So easy getting it over to Spotify, getting it to Apple, wherever you're trying to get your podcast to.
Yeah, I think we're on like 7 platforms just through Anchor, and not even just the distribution, but even just creating the podcast. Like there's so many recording and editing tools within it, so you can record, edit, add music in, sound effects, all sorts of things directly through Anchor, and it is free.
Dude, that's amazing.
It's incredible. So if you would like to start your own podcast, just like ours, go to anchor.fm on your desktop device, or you can go on to your mobile app store and download the Anchor app. We are back discussing Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and one of the things I want to take credit for this. I definitely thought about this. Like, I was singing this in my head, but I couldn't like express it. But when doing the parking lot talk, Susan is the one who said like this movie really just felt like it was going back to the basics, and I thought that was a really great way to put like some of my thoughts on the things that this movie was doing right, and also some of the things that this movie was doing wrong. And there weren't many of the things it was doing wrong, because it was a pretty dang good movie. Brenden, what were some of the things that you noticed that were like very, very simple, but also just kind of made this movie what it was? Like it was good because of this very simple thing that they did from a filmmaking perspective, because you are in film school.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of layers to, I think, what makes this feel more like an MCU movie, but from like a super zoomed out perspective, I feel like just progression, like it felt like we were going somewhere. There was a direction. It felt like it wasn't just something that was happening to happen so they can put it on Disney Plus to get more subscribers. Like it felt like this was very much, okay, we're moving. This is a journey. There's an actual timeline again. Like we're moving in the right direction. We're kind of steering you somewhere throughout all these different movies and shows. And I think that was the most refreshing thing for me from just a super wide, looking at it from a wide perspective. And that was my first reaction was just how natural that felt as an MCU installation here. So
Yeah, this felt like a Phase 1 movie with, like, I don't even know how to really like describe it. It felt like a Phase 1 movie in terms of like style and structure, but with all of the advancements and the things that have worked well all the way up until now. Like I don't know how else to describe that. But yeah, I don't know. It very much felt like they're kind of going back to their roots and not so much of this just we're gonna have this random world-ending event happen for the sake of a world-ending event happen. I feel like that's something that Marvel does do all the time, and I liked how this one actually had its own kind of weight to it. Like it was a personal journey for every single character, and like I feel like character was at the forefront of this movie. You could almost very easily just make this a character study if you took out all of the Marvel action sequences. Like everyone had good reasons for how they were feeling, and just watching them react to this death of the Black Panther was really interesting, and also kept me invested the whole time, as opposed to a lot of the other movies that released this year, where it's just we're gonna go fight the bad guy because they're bad and we're good, and that's what we do. Like, there's not a whole lot of emotional investment in Love and Thunder or Multiverse of Madness. It's just we're gonna go fight. Dry. We're gonna go fight the bad guy because that's our job. But this one, like, yes, there is a real world element to it, but I think even without that, in 20 years' time, I feel like this movie is still going to have a ton of emotional weight behind it, because it was focused on this very real thing, and it was focused on character as opposed to how are we going to get to the next action sequence. Yeah.
And also just to see how because a lot of these characters are reprising roles from the first movie. So it'll be interesting to see how their character adapted and changed, and like what roles were completely, changed to fit this new story, and how well those actors handled it, and how well that story was held intact, and those characters were held intact through that shift. So
that's another thing. I feel like Ryan Coogler is very good at keeping story at the forefront. I feel like one of the complaints that I've heard of Black Panther, the original, is that it's too simple. It's a very basic hero's journey. There's not a lot of chaos going on. But look, it's a cliche for a reason. Like everybody uses that kind of structure for a reason. It's because it works, and because it's good, compelling storytelling. And he does it again here. This is just another coming of age story, technically. I guess is how I would define it. Like overcoming grief. I don't know how else to call it, but like it's a very simple story structurally, and I'm really glad that Ryan Coogler left out a lot of the spectacle that these Marvel movies have felt like they need, and kept it pretty focused on story, and not. It would have been very easy to make Chadwick show up in some form, just for the sake of him showing up, and for get people and see because they want to see Chadwick again. And Disney obviously has the technology to do that. But the story didn't need that. I don't know. I say that. I think the story would have still worked with that. Things would have gone slightly differently. But also the whole point of Shuri's journey is that she has to go without Chadwick anymore. She can't go be with T'Challa all the time. So I feel like that also would have destroyed it if T'Challa showed up in some capacity.
I feel like that idea was brought up once in one pre-production meeting, like at the beginning. It's like, so are we doing this? And everyone at the same time was like, no, why would, and I feel like that's the consensus of most of the viewers and fans as well, is just wasn't needed, not necessary, wouldn't have completely changed, it would have left, I feel like, fans a little, I think there would be some hesitation.
It would have been nice to say goodbye.
Yeah.
But also, I think we were still able to get that with the moments of silence that we had.
Yeah, I think that was a way better installation of like placing that kind of moment in the scene without needing to actually see the face of Chadwick. I don't think we completely needed that. And we still got some little flashes and images towards the end as Shuri's kind of moving on, like kind of coming to that that like final destination in her character arc for this film of her like, okay, like she kind of accepts it and kind of has, like you mentioned, like not coming to age, but just you could see that passing of grief. And then you see even more of it once she beats Prince T'Challa as well, or the second. Is it the second? T'Challa the second?
I think they just called him Prince T'Challa, which is also kind of confusing because he was also Prince T'Challa like in the first two movies that we saw him in.
Yeah. I was a little interesting. Yeah. So I guess it's like, is now Shuri Queen? Like, is that
okay? So here's my question.
Working now?
No, because M'Baku shows up to the ceremony. He's like, Black Panther's not going to show up, so I'm going to challenge for the throne. So like M'Baku is the new king of Wakanda. So does that mean that T'Challa is still Prince? Because M'Baku is not related to them. Would that
shift, or is it like I don't know. Is there very weird because there's not really a royal family that's like a consistent line. Like it can change if someone challenges, right? Like they can lose their status.
I need to know the rest of the politics of Wakanda. This is the most pressing issue in the MCU right now.
And I feel like we'll get a little bit of that with the new Prince. Like I feel like we'll see him in a couple other films and they'll be like trying to protect him, or you know what I mean? Like we'll see some young Prince T'Challa a little bit more, because I think people enjoyed his character just in that little snippet we got. So
I mean, he was adorable. How could you not?
How can we not add a little bit more of that in there?
Yeah. I think that could be a really interesting plot for a third one. Is just introducing this kid, and it's a bit MacGuffin-y, but that's another basic storytelling element that can work really well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What else were they doing well to bring this back to basics? Like,
I mean,
what did you see specifically that you liked outside of what we
could talk story all day long, because Ryan Coogler is just a master at story. But I think he's just a really great director in general. And with that comes all these other elements of filmmaking that he did really he orchestrated really, really well. Cinematography was one that just kept blowing my mind. And I
think this is one of the best shot Marvel movies to date, for sure.
Yes,
it's up there. It's just every scene there. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah, like there were lots of just very obvious decisions that were made that I feel like others wouldn't have done for some reason. For example, like all of like the wonders and the long takes that they did. Every time they did it like 3 or 4 times, and every single time it was there to like put you on the edge of your seat and to convey stress and like things are happening really quickly. And he kept doing it over and over again, but every time it felt good and it felt fresh. It didn't feel like he was doing it over and over again, like other movies might. Like it was needed for the story, and because it was in service of the story, it worked really well. And I didn't always notice them until I started actually looking for it the second time. And also, they're just really well put together wonders. Which I mean, that's the key to my heart right there.
I think between recent Marvel productions, I think they've been, I don't know if they've always done this, just because I haven't always looked at cinematography in movies back since 4 years ago or so when I started doing a lot of school and stuff. But I feel like the cinematographers that they go with are a little more like out of the books, and it's almost like there's this cool stone that they've been using. So you'll see like a cinematographer will kind of be coming in, they'll have like a couple more popular pieces that they've worked on recently, and then they'll get a show. And then if they do well in the show, then they'll get to a movie. And that's exactly what happened here with Autumn. Like she started with Loki, loved Loki, it was beautiful. I think it was really well done. And then like almost instantaneously, like, here we go, like we're moving you on up.
Yeah.
So I think it's just kind of cool to see, like, kind of a bonus of having those TV episodes that are supposed to be more cinematic and more movie-like, is you get to gain more talent. You get to pull from a larger talent pool. You get to kind of see them in a still high budget, but it is not quite as, people aren't gonna complain about a show's cinematography as much, as they would in movies. So
that's a really good point I haven't noticed, because the same thing with Loki as well. It's Natalie Holt, the composer, is now composing like everything, because she did a fantastic job on Loki. Yeah, and they could take it. It was awesome. They could take a bit of a risk on it. Yeah, that's a really good point. I also feel like with like one of the things that they did that was really smart is all of the water effects were practical, at least for the most part. Which is a lot more expensive. It would have been so easy for like the water bombs to just be big CG things, and they probably would have looked like crap, because it's water and that's really hard. That's a lot of particles and a lot you have to go into, and you don't have a lot of time to do it. But having most of them be practical water explosions just looked so cool, and it felt so much more real in a movie that is absolutely not real. Yeah,
it definitely helped ground kind of what was going on, and since water is such a big like player of the movie, like almost a character in and of itself, but the water has such an important aspect of it. I think such a good idea to go with, using that practical, shoot that 24K or whatever they ended up using.
Yeah, they filmed the entire thing in like 24K. Like, holy cow!
To get that extra resolution. I mean, it's nuts. And I'd be curious to see what kind of frame rates they were using on it too, because it was moving really slow for a couple of those shots. Like, it was.
That's true, because I know that like
ridiculous frame rates.
Normally they shoot double the frame rate, so if they wanted the final product to be 24, they'll shoot in 48, so they have those extra frames to work with with CG and everything. So if they're shooting that in like 240, then you're looking at like what is that, 480 frame rate, 480 frames per second. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of budget, a fun fact I didn't get a chance to share yet. So it had an estimated budget of $250 million, and that makes this the most expensive film with a black lead in it, beating out Men in Black 3, starring Will Smith, with a budget of $215 million. So that was something that I thought was pretty cool, and totally unrelated to the conversation, but I'm just going to casually slide that in there.
It's good to see.
Yeah, we love to see it. That's another thing I noticed too, is like, not only I feel like Hollywood is moving in a really good direction, because I have not seen a bajillion articles about how this is not only is this a primarily black-led film, but also it's a primarily female-led film. There's not a lot of dudes in it other than the antagonist. And I think that's really cool to see, but I think the thing that I like seeing more is the fact that that is not the only narrative around the movie, that it's just, this is a thing that's happening. We're going to talk about all the actual things that we should be talking about, and not the fact that there's just, like, this is a normal thing, and we shouldn't have to make a big deal every single time about there being a black female-led film, because that can happen. It's okay. Black females have stories to be told too, and I that gives me a little hope for the future. It tells me that even though things are still rough in some areas, we are making progress. Anyway,
it's a good take on it for sure.
Yeah. Here's something that I really want to talk about. Ludwig Göransson, the composer for this film. Oh man! Oh boy!
Yeah. All right, here we go.
This guy.
Strap in. 10-minute segment. Let's go.
Yeah, we just need to add a third segment completely dedicated to the score.
Oh, you could have a whole episode. Yeah.
So like, I had to drive some ways to go see this in IMAX. And on my way back, I was waiting, and I was like, oh, it's midnight. I pulled up my Spotify, turned on the score for this movie, and it's just all of it is so freaking good. And also, speaking of like taking like steps up, Ryan Coogler did the same thing with Ludwig Göransson, and kind of elevated him up through higher and higher levels of movies. This guy, like some of the stuff that he was doing thematically,
it's genius.
Is so good.
Really.
There's a track, it's called Wakanda Forever, and it's when Shuri suits up and she's going and doing like the arm wrestling with M'Baku to prove that she's the Black Panther now. You have all of these themes like building on top of each other. So you have, I don't know what they call it, the Namor theme or the revenge theme, because it plays a few times whenever Shuri is feeling like vengeful. But you have like this revenge theme playing, and on top of that you have like the pulse in the background of Shuri's theme, and then you're also seeing like little tidbits of the Wakanda theme, and they're all kind of building on top of each other in this big ugly ball, but it all fits together so well, and it sounds beautiful and epic, and also it's just the perfect storytelling element. Like, if it's just conveying all of these things, like Shuri is fighting for Wakanda, but also she's going in with this really vengeful bloodlust and all of all the chaos that creates. And it was so good, Brenden. It was so good. I can't even put it into words. All I can say is it was so good.
Yeah, it's just really well done. The last almost anything I've seen out of Ludwig has been just phenomenal. I don't think I've really seen anything that's been less than on the verge of genius, like every time. And I think a lot of that's due to just the time he puts in. Like he's got a lot of raw talent, but also he does his research. You know, I remember I saw an article or two mentioning that he like went to Mexico and he did a lot of research on Mayan culture to try and understand and kind of get a feel for how those kind of like what would that sound like, you know, at that time frame, like what kind of instruments, you know, where should he be sampling from and stuff like that, and that says a lot about you know, his commitment to
doing it right.
Yeah,
and like, because even like with the first one, like Ryan Coogler like said, hey, by the way, I'm going to do this Black Panther movie. I'm probably I'm gonna hire you probably. And he said, you should just hire me now so I can go to Africa and start sampling and learn. And that's what they did, and that won them. That's one of the reasons why it's one of the greatest movie scores of all time. Because so like he took that extra initiative to go and work with Baba Mal, who made a cameo appearance during the funeral procession, which is kind of cool. Baba Mal's kind of like the Michael Jackson of Africa, if I understand correctly. Like he's like this big pop star, and apparently I think this would be so cool to see in Africa when they have concerts. The concert won't start until like 4 a.m, and then the idea is that the concert ends once the sun rises. So you watch the sunrise with all these people at the concert, which seems like
so cool.
Yeah, that seems like such a cool moment. Anyway, that's super off topic. Ludwig Göransson absolutely just knocks it out of the park every time. So glad that he's getting the attention, the recognition that he deserves. And
he's not even 40 yet, right? Like,
no,
he's still pretty young.
He's really young, which I think is one of the reasons why some of the stuff he's doing works really well. He's introducing new styles and things. I mean, for Mando, he created a lot of his own instruments, and then he soundtrack. I'm pretty sure he played like just about everything, like all the instruments being recorded for the Mando theme. Yeah, he did most of them, other than like the orchestra, which is that guy.
That's awesome. He's going to be around for a while. We're going to be talking about him very frequently, I have a feeling.
Yeah,
he'll be.
You're going to get tired of us talking about Ludwig Göransson. I don't know. There's a lot of just very like simple things that they've done. I don't know, to tie that conversation back into this. Like writing a score and like writing themes and everything is a pretty simple thing to do, and I feel like a lot of composers will write a quick little theme and they'll just carry on. But Ludwig Göransson does like take the extra step. And he keeps it simple, He only has a few themes in every movie, but like is able to create variations and like build them on top of each other to help tell the story in different ways, which is really cool.
Sure.
But while this movie had a lot of really great things that were just simple and like kept it really good, there's a couple of Marvel basics that I don't want to say ruined the movie, but definitely dropped it down a peg.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest one, and we kind of hinted at it first segment. I was trying to skirt around the conversation because I know I wanted to talk about it here. This movie has a 2 hour and 40-minute runtime, and this movie could have easily been just over 2 hours.
Yeah.
But there was so much extra stuff that they threw in there solely for the purpose of setting up other things. Which is a very Marvel thing to do. It's one of the reasons that they're so successful is that they are able to introduce, they're able to make Hawkeye and Black Widow these characters that people love without actually giving them their own project for 10 years. But sometimes you just need to leave it alone. I think it's one of the reasons that the first Black Panther works so well. In the movie, there was one reference to they get to fix another white guy and the post-credit scene with Bucky, and that's the only real connection it has to the rest of the MCU. And Ross, I guess. But this one, it felt like they were trying to set up something with Val. I don't know why she was in this movie. Like, I understand if she was going to recruit somebody, but she didn't. She was just there to like say, "Hey guys, remember me? I'm still around."
Just like trying to stay relevant, you know?
Yeah, which
Very
I think
weird.
kind
like,
of
don't forget about me, like.
Which I think kind of ruined her like mystique, because I think she was so much cooler when I didn't know what she was doing. She was being like, "Hey, I'm going to recruit you for something," and then leaving. I liked that a lot better than this. I'm gonna go sneak into somebody's house and make a salad and drink a bottle of wine before I arrest them. Like, it was that was really weird. And also, I loved Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams. She killed it. But I think having her be introduced in this movie is going to be more of a detriment than it is a help.
Yeah, it felt very forced. Like, it just wasn't natural. I think we needed something to bring us into this, you know, whether or not that show should have came before this, or even there's so many opportunities at the end of every freaking She-Hulk episode or wherever you could add little end credit scenes to, you know, slowly set up like, oh, this person's coming and stuff like that. And even at the end of this, like the Valentine bits could have all just been at the end, and like could have been like her approaching, you know what I mean? Or saying, "Hey, you want to join my team?" Like something like that. Like, could have been so much more simpler than it was.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm trying to figure out like what Ironheart is gonna be now, because she doesn't have an origin story. Like, they took away her suit, so are we gonna see her like struggle to make a new suit when she's already done it?
They need to make a new suit. I'm gonna be real. Hot take. That was,
you didn't like it?
That was a miss. That was not is what I was expecting. Even as like, oh yeah, first suit, like it can look kind of trash. It looked like it was out of Fortnite. It was pretty gross. I know it's like nothing could kind of come close to Tony's suits,
but also that's what the Ironheart suit looks like.
Yeah, just I don't know. I was wanting more. It was not what I was wanting.
I don't know. I think it will get sleeker. That was obviously like a very early rendition of it.
Yeah. And they can't go straight to being super refined. Like,
right. They got to give her something to do in Ironheart.
There's Mark like 300, you know, like we gotta give her something to work on, for sure. But
then also like the car thing, like I didn't realize that the car was like a big deal when they first got in it, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, by the way, like my dad and I worked on this car, and it's like, okay, I don't care.
I feel like she mentioned that like towards like while they were somewhere in that shop scene.
She didn't mention it explicitly. Like, she just...
Like, there was hints. Like, it felt like, that has
she was just hesitant to let them borrow it.
Anytime someone has a cover over a car and they remove it in a movie, that car has some form of significance. It's like that's just something that has to happen. You know, any movie that like, oh yeah, oh this is my baby, this is my dad's. We worked out it as kids or whatever. It's always feel like that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know. If she wasn't, I think the brilliance of Ryan Coogler is that he took this limitation of we have to introduce Riri in this movie. I'm really glad that she at least had something to do. Like, I'm more concerned about how her own project is going to work out, not so much about her introduction here. I think her introduction could have been better if it was done somewhere else. But like, she had something to do. She was a part of the plot and like was still an interesting character. So like that worked out well. I just think as a whole, Riri would have been done a little better if it was out of this movie, and this movie could have been a little shorter, which would give it higher rewatchability, which is going to get you back over that $1 billion mark. Because a lot of people are not estimating Wakanda Forever is going to have the same box office legs as the original did. A lot of people are estimating around 800 million, which is still no simple thing. It's estimated to make 170 this weekend. So
pretty good.
Yeah, it's not doing too shabby.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to break records, you're gonna be missing that kind of stuff for sure. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And I feel like Riri's character playing with Shuri kind of helped too. Like that dynamic of those two interacting, it helped a lot. It kind of, because if it was just her, it was just Riri doing her thing, I think it would have been a little too dry.
And I think part of the reason that they did it is that Riri needs a new mentor, because in the comics, like she's basically like Kamala Khan, like she's obsessed with Iron Man, and then like Iron Man comes and helps her. Obviously that can't happen. It's like an Iron Man AI, if I remember correctly. It's like a Tony Stark AI kind of thing.
Still very well could happen. Gonna be real.
Which could happen, but
would not be shocked.
They've said that they're not going to do that. So they need a new figure to be in her life, and I think Shuri fits that role really well.
The perfect and the ties to Wakanda and get access to technology makes so much sense. Yeah.
Can I give an example of how not doing being basic was a detriment to them?
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I'm not a big fan of Shuri's suit. I just think there's way too much going on.
Wow.
And it just seemed like there's accents in random spots for there's no definition to anything. And there's like a weird contrast between gold and silver in the suit that was really bothering me. I still think it looks pretty cool. I just don't love it. I wish they would go back to the more comic accurate suit where it's just mostly black with like the little scarf thing around the shoulders.
Yeah, I like that too. And I don't know if part of that was like they were trying to retire that suit for Chadwick too. Like they didn't want to bring.
They want to make it very, very different. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like it has to be. This is a new Black Panther. This is a different person. Like we're moving to something else. But I mean, totally could see them later on bringing back that style again, just to highlight it. But yeah, I don't know. I actually really liked the suit. I had no issues with it. I thought it looked great.
But on the flip end, keeping Namor very simple worked. Yeah. I mean, he wears really small green swimming trunks, and that's about it in the comics. And they added a little more to make him more Mayan, but they kept it basic, and he looked really good.
No, it was good.
One last thing that I need to complain about. Right, Marvel's obsessed with these big third act faceless action sequences. And they can be cool, but I don't ever care about them. Like it's just there to create intensity. And I feel like especially in a movie like this, I think it would have been worth the risk to keep it entirely focused on Shuri and Namor, because there's a lot of emotional weight that's keeping me invested in that fight, even though both of them are on their last leg, not able to, do a full swing or anything. I really wish they would have put more emphasis on that fight, and because there was so much emotional weight behind it. and I feel like that would have made Shuri's change of heart right at the end a little more impactful if she was able to have just a little more. I don't know. I wish we got more of that fight as opposed to cutting away constantly to this big action sequence, which in IMAX was really distracting because the big 200v200 fight going on was in IMAX resolution, but then Namor versus Shuri was shot in an anamorphic, and so you just kept seeing the screen get bigger and smaller, like back and forth, which was really distracting me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it definitely clashed for sure. Going from two people fighting to a bunch of people. And I agree. I think they definitely could have played that final battle differently. And it'd have been Shuri literally just going to kill Namor, like luring him out, trying to just end this person, kind of following in, surprisingly, Michael B. Jordan showed up, to kind of show like her struggle and her mental and just that character arc. Was really well done, by the way. I don't know if we touched on that yet or not, but that was really cool. But just to see that final scene to just kind of really hone in on the two of them, kind of take out all the extra fighting that was going on. I don't think it was completely necessary. And they may have kind of backed them into that corner because they developed so many different characters in the film. Like,
that's true.
It was just Shuri and Namor, like maybe someone would be missing.
Like Winston Duke, for example, was not in this movie enough. But a lot of his screen time did come in those big action sequences, as in Baku. So yeah, that's a really good point. And Brenden, you keep bringing up really great things that we should talk about. But we are way over time right now. This is going to be a very long episode. So if you stuck around this long, thank you very much for listening to
you guys
to our ramblings.
Goats.
If you're not done with us, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/popcorn hangover to check out the Parking Lot Talk episode. Once again with Brenden and a few other special guests. Brenden, do you have any final thoughts on Black Panther Wakanda Forever and just going back to the basics?
Yeah, I think this was good. And even though like my only critique was that it was a little confusing at times as far as how many characters they were introducing in different times, like it also kind of brings you back. Like I remember originally having to explain to almost everyone I know, this is what's going on and this person's going to show up here. And that was kind of the fun in it, like was trying to guess and like kind of, go back and forth between, so this is what happens in the comics. So this is what we can expect here and what these characters mean and where the story's going. It's expanding to the point where it's getting a little too hairy. So I'm not by any means a super big MCU buff, but I have friends that are, and coworkers that are. So like, it's kind of cool to see, like, for those people that are mega MCU nerds, like this is fantastic. Like you're kind of getting to really hone in. But as far as this movie on its own, I have
no idea what you're talking about.
As far as this movie on its own, I mean, 4 out of 5 for me, for sure. Very well done, lit well, cinematic. Color was fantastic. Each scene felt real, felt natural, besides that one little underwater skirmish. So hats off to Marvel for giving us something that I think everyone has been like really needing from them after these little patches of television shows that felt underdeveloped and just was like, where are we going here? So great stuff from Marvel today.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say what Brenden said because that was all very well said. I also gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd.
Hey, look at us.
So we agree there. Brenden, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, my social handles are pretty much Brenden1113 across the board. Hit me up on Instagram. That's where I'm mostly active. So,
Perfect. You have been listening to the Popcorn Hangover. I'm Alex. That is Brenden. We've been discussing Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. What are your thoughts on Black Panther? Let us know on all the things, Instagram, TikTok, patreon.com/popcorn hangover. And that is all I got for you, Brenden. Do you have any final words?
Nah, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate all of you. Have a great day.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Peace.
Boom.